We're going to have some fun with some tracks I got from the great Warren Hewart. It's a cover of a Foo Fighters song called Everlong. You could go download these tracks from his YouTube channel, and I recommend you do that. We're going to go over how I treat them in the box before I spread them across my console and use outboard to mix out of the box. These light blue tracks right here, these are VCA tracks. And that's a new option in Pro Tools, or the later version of Pro Tools. I got Pro Tools 2020, and awesome feature. So just so you know what those are. Basically, the old SSL consoles, you could group 6, 8, 10, as many tracks as you want, assigned to a voltage-controlled amplifier, fader, and you could control that group of tracks with that one fader, and that's what that's doing in Pro Tools. I don't even have this panned yet, so I'm going to go over how I pan the tracks. Let's just solo the drums. Here they are. All right, I know right now I'm going to take the floor tom 60% to the left, rack tom say 40% to the right. Before I even start mixing, I make the decision of, am I going to do it from the drummer's perspective or the audience perspective? I'm doing this mix from the audience perspective, meaning I'm basically looking at a drummer from the audience perspective. The hi-hat will be on the right, the floor tom will be on the left. Gonna go to this hi-hat right here, put that about the 42% to the right. Good sound and drum set. It's important to know that this entire session, every microphone that they used was a Riot microphone and basically consumer grade converters. Now I'm going to show you what I do in the box to a drum set. I set up an auxiliary track, and that track is right here. This burnt orange colored track. And what I do is I come over here, I go to bus 1 and 2, there it is. Set the volume, let's put it at -8 dB. Copy it over. I'm going to set this for the sub kick at -10.2. And what I'm doing here is I'm creating a little sub mix behind the drum mix. Once I'm done setting up this little mix behind the drum mix, I'm going to send that out to hit some plugins, eventually some outboard gear, and return it to my board and tuck it in underneath the regular drum mix, the original drum mix, for parallel processing. The SSL comp, I got a preset already ready to go, Riot drum bus. And let's look at this SSL comp. What I'm going to do here, I'm going to let it play, and I'm going to adjust this threshold to where I'm not doing more than approximately 4 dB of compression, because I am also eventually going to use outboard gear, and I want to use a little bit of compression here, a little bit of compression there, the best of both worlds for my parallel processing. I'm going to grab the little plate reverb. So what I'm going to do is I have a preset, but I'm going to adjust it. Riot Great Plate, boom. There it is. I could already tell I don't want 2.5, actually 3 seconds of decay. So I'm going to lower that down. All right. And also the low cut right here. I don't want the bottom end to be reverby. And then my parallel wet dry. Man, I just love this plugin from Sound Toys. Okay, let's hear this. We'll go back and adjust that later as we go through the mix. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up the fab filter on my stereo overheads. And I am also going to pull up the fab filter on my drum bus, okay? And all I'm doing here on the drum bus is extreme lows and extreme highs. For the hi-hat, I'm just gonna high pass the extreme lows, basically at like 45 hertz. This is where we started with the drums. And in less than 10 minutes, this is where we're at. More punch to them, a little bit more space around them, a little bit more clarity in the low end. It's not so mushed together. And the reason why I high pass in the box is because as I start to spread this across my board and add all this colorful outboard gear, there's going to be a bunch of low end sub-harmonics added to these tracks. And what I'm going to do is counterbalance with some high passing and adding a little bit of clarity here and there. What I'm showing you here is just how I treat the tracks in the box before I start mixing with my outboard gear. Okay, so let's hear this bass. So what we have is a bass DI and a bass amp. I am going to take the bass amp and tuck it down underneath the bass DI, level-wise. The bass is panned straight up the center. What I want to do with that bass amp is just fill in the low end of the DI. I could get away with just treating this DI and have a great bass sound. But the bass amp's there, let's use it. And now let me show you how I treat it. Renaissance, high pass, 40 hertz, and let's pull up the decapitator, and let's hear this. Let me solo out this DI. Just adding a little bit of dirt to the bass. Okay, so let's hear these guitars. Okay, let's do this. Pull up the Renaissance EQ, high pass at, let's say, 108. Drag that over to the other guitar tracks. I'm putting them in a category there where I'm high passing, notching out. All right, let me grab API EQ. Let me copy and paste that over. Just to left and right, let me mute that center track. All right, just starting to come to life. And for the center guitar track, this one, I'm gonna add the CQ. Notice how I'm working pretty fast here. So right now, what we took is the core tracks of the song, the drums, the bass, and the rhythm guitars, and we treated them. So this is the foundation of the song, and I'm gonna tuck everything else around that. So let's hear where we're at now. Now I'm going to go through how I assign the tracks in Pro Tools to spread across my board. And you could do this with any mixer. It doesn't matter what brand it is, Soundcraft, Mackie, API, SSL, you name it. This is how it's done. So what I do is I come to kick drum. I go to output 1, sub kick, output 2, snare top, output 3. For the snare sample, I'm going to combine it with the snare top mic to channel 3. Snare bottom, output 4, floor tom 5, rack tom 6. And I already have them panned accordingly. Stereo left and right. Assign those outputs to 7 and 8. And hi-hat to channel 9 on my console. I'm going to assign my stereo drum bus out to 25 and 26, and my reverb to 31 and 32. So my drum bus 25 and 26 right here. It's not going to any outboard yet. And then my plate verb, I am going to echo return 3 and 4 on my board. So let's hear the drums spread across the board. Okay, already more depth. It's a wider image from front to back. It's deeper. From left to right, it's wider. And the reason why is you're going through a lot more transformers and basically amps when you're hitting a board like this. I do want to mention how important it is for your monitoring path to be honest and transparent. My monitoring path, this channel right here, when I adjust this, that's going to my speakers, this is not affecting my sound. It's not the mix that's going to the tube bus. It's just monitoring the mix going to the tube bus, all right? So it's important that you have an honest representation of what your mix sounds like, all right? And I have the same op amps in this channel as I do in my inward connection master section. You want to hear exactly what the mix sounds like. That's something very important that we should understand. Now I am going to dial in some drum bus. I want to patch in the API 2500. So for the drum bus coming to 25 and 26, I just patched in the API 2500 and a pair of 550 AEQs. Let's dial those in. Here it is without the drum bus processing, and then I'll add it in. Here it is without. Remember how I said I will constantly go back and adjust what I did in the box? I could hear that the kick is a little too much right now, so I am going to come back over here and I am going to adjust the kick. Turn that down a couple dB. All right. A little better. The same way I treated the bus in the box and then the tracks, I'm going to do the same thing here. I just treated the drum bus, and now I'm going to go back and add some compression and EQ to the actual drum tracks. So let's do that now. For the kick drum, I'm going to add a distressor. For the snare drum, I'm going to add a distressor. Now first I am going to solo out the kick and the snare and dial this in. Okay, let's hear that in the drum mix. Now the bass, for the DI and the bass amp, I have them both coming out to channel 10 right here. Okay, let's throw an 1176 and a 550 BEQ on that. Out of channel 10 into 1176, out of 1176 into a 550B, out of the 550B into channel 10. So let's dial this in. All right, let's move on to these rhythm guitars, the left and right. That's it with no processing. It's literally just running through the board, and it already sounds fatter and deeper to me. Remember, we do have those plugins, the 550A, in the box before I'm even coming out to the board. Now what I'm going to do is I want to add the Alicia X filter to the guitars. Let's do that now. Let's play those guitars. That thing kicks ass. I really like what this Alicia is doing to the guitars, so I want to really point out the way I'm treating the guitar. So it's not really affecting the below 120 hertz. All right, I have the gain reduction limits where that's really not even being peaked, and the gain, makeup gain, is at 0.2, so hardly any makeup gain, and the wet-dry parallel I have at 40%, so it is more dry than it is wet. The ratio looks like I have it like 4.5, and the release, the attack, and the threshold. I tell you, Alicia just makes amazing gear. Let's hear it in the mix. The core rhythm, drums, bass, rhythm, guitar, left and right. Here we go. Let's add some EQ to these guitars. What I just did was I took the guitars on the insert of the board, came out to the Alicia, out of the Alicia into a pair of 550 EQs, out of the EQs back into the channel strip. So now we're going to add these EQs to the guitars. Here we go. It's okay to get aggressive with API EQs because they just sound great no matter how much you push them. Let's hear these guitars in the mix with the EQ. They're creamy, very creamy. There might be a little bit too much fizz in the top end. I will know once we start adding vocals. Whenever I'm EQing something, I'm not just listening to how it's affecting the tracks that I'm adjusting the EQ on. I'm listening to how it's affecting the tracks around it too. So if I'm dialing in EQ on the overheads, I'm also listening to what that EQ that I'm dialing in on the overheads is doing to the snare drum. It's important to do that. So I got the hard left, I got the hard right, and now we're going to hear this center that's on channel 13. And I know what to patch in for that. I'm going to go with a DBX 160 XT, so channel 13. All right, let's hear that. Literally only doing 1 dB, 2 dB of gain reduction on it, but I really love the DBX 160 XT on guitars in general. And I have the 160As here, but I like these more on bass and vocals, kick and snare, but the XTs, guitars, man. I don't know what it is about it. I don't know what the difference is. It just sounds great on guitars. So let's hear it, and I'm going to dial in some EQ on the board, and then we'll tuck it in the mix. Here we go. Okay, let's move on to the guitar stabs. And the guitar stabs, I'm going to have to move on to a different part in the song so we get to them. Here's the guitar stabs. I have that coming through channel 14. These guitar stabs are very important. It adds texture to the song. I am going to use my gate stay level to make those cut through the mix. Come out of channel 14 into my stay level, out of the stay level into channel 14. All right, let's hear what this does. Let's tuck those into the mix, see what we can do with them. Very good. Let me add some EQ to them, and I'm going to adjust this EQ while it's in the mix. So here we go. Okay, what that guitar and these guitars need, I want them to gel a little bit more. They're already gelling. Man, that is a great guitar tone. I want to set up another auxiliary in the box here. So I will assign buses 5 and 6. We will go very low here, maybe negative 18.2. And I am going to pan that to the left, copy over the track, pan that one to the right. That's going to be the same level. Watch this. Yep. And then I'm going to pan that. And then this one is going to be up the center. Now I am going to create a stereo augs just like we did with the drums. And what I'm doing is I'm adding bus for the guitars. So we're going to do an augs input stereo. And we're going to create it. There it is. I'm going to change the color on that because I have all my effects color coded. And I like this yellow for effects. I'm going to assign the input to bus 5 and 6. And the output I am going to assign to echo return 1 and 2. I'll make it big for you. There we go. And let's dial in this plugin and try and get a cool guitar, that guitar stabbing and these rhythm guitars, dial them in a little bit, a little submix of some effects. Throw that in the mix really fast. Let's hear what this does to the guitars. Listen to this. Hear that? That quick decay of verb? That's adding ambience, all right? So here it is without it. Let me mute it. Blunt stop. Here it is with it. Hear that decay? It's hardly there, but it's there, and it does add ambience. Let's hear it all together, and then the stabs will come in. So right now I think we're in a good spot with the rhythm to start adding in the vocals and start getting them in the mix. So let's do that. So now I'm in the process of patching in compressors for the backup vocals. I have the Fatso on the main backup vocals, and then I'm going to put the germanium compressors on the harmony backup vocals. Since I usually use my Fatso for backup vocals, I already pretty much have it set in a place where it should be pretty close. The first thing I'm going to do in the box for these vocals is pull up the Renaissance Vox. I'm going to copy them over. I just have a very light setting on this Renaissance Vox, and it's just to bring the vocals up front a little bit. Now, for the main vocal, I'm going to put the Renaissance Vox on, but this is going to be a more aggressive preset that I have for vocals. Let's hear these backup vocals, the main backup vocals, through the Fatso.
Hello, I have waited here for you Everlong. Tonight, I have thrown myself into and out of the red and out of her head she sang.
Great sound and compressor. I absolutely love the Fatso, and I track through it all the time. Let's hear it without, and then I will actually insert it in. So here it is without.
Hello, I have waited here for you Everlong.
Fatso adds fatness. All right, so there is some effects on these vocals I have assigned to channel 27 and 28. That's hard pan left and right. Let me add that in a little bit so you could hear ambience and vibe it adds. Here we go.
Hello, I have waited here for you.
And the reason why I like to have my vocal effects on faders instead of echo returns is because during the final mix print, I like to ride those faders. And then maybe during the chorus, I'll goose it up a little bit or pull it back, just depending. It adds movement in the song that I like. Let's get to a part where we have harmonies here.
If everything could ever be this real forever, if anything could ever be this good again, the only thing I'll ever ask of you, you gotta promise not to stop when I say when.
What I want to do here is I'm going to move those low backup vocals, I want to clean up the bottom end of that. So I'm going to pull up high pass a good amount. Let's do 120-ish. There we go. That's good enough for me. Right there. Just those really, really low end sub vocals there. So for 19 and 20 harmony vocals, I have the Chandler Germaniums. I'm getting the backup and harmony vocals in the right spot, and then I'm going to bring in the lead vocals. Did you hear really fast how I just dialed an EQ on the board and it made those vocals sit in the mix a little bit better? Listen to this. We'll start it without it, and then I'll add it. So it's going to be the main backup vocals. I'll pop it in, and then when the low harmonies start, I'll pop that in. Here we go. And with the console EQ, when you see I'm dialing it in, sometimes I'm not even looking at it. I'm just listening to it. Boom, boom, boom. Done. Tucked in. I hear it. Boom. To my monitors. That's all I need. And I think that goes a long way. It's hard to mix if you're mixing in the box without looking at the monitor, because you need to know where your mouse is and everything. And that's the good thing about having outboard and a console like this, is you could just instantly, bam, 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 on the fly, dial stuff in. You're going off your instinct, all right? So let's hear this without the EQ and then with.
Come now and waste away with me, down with me.
So that's what console EQ can do, all right? And I just love it. Now we're gonna move on to the main vocals. Let's try something that's hardly ever been used on a vocal before, an 1176. That's a joke, okay? And then we'll throw API EQ on it. And we'll go with some yellow so we know where we're at here on the patch bay. So I am gonna come out of, what's the main vocals coming out of? Channel 16. So channel 16 main vocals, that's right here. So channel 16, we're coming out of the insert into an 1176, out of the 1176 into 550 BEQ, out of the 550 BEQ, back into the channel. So let's get this compressor dialed in. Let me solo out this main vocal. Let's get to a spot where we could hear it.
Hello, I've waited here for you Everlong. Tonight I throw myself into.
I just love these 1176s. They just sound so smooth and big and musical. Audioscape 1176. Revision F rep. All right, that's already sounding great.
Hello, I've waited here for you.
All right, now we're going to dial in some EQ on that. 550B.
Hello, I've waited here for you Everlong. Tonight I throw myself into, and out of the red and out of her head she sang.
Here it is without the 550B EQ, and I'm gonna add it in.
Hello, I've waited here for you Everlong.
Low mids, just push, 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 all right? Let's now hear it in the mix and dial it in the mix, because it really doesn't matter what it sounds like alone. It matters what it sounds like with the combination of all the other tracks, all right? So let's do that. Let me back it up a little bit so my ears get used to the main instruments and how the vocals come in. So just like a measure or two before. Here we go.
Hello, I've waited here for you Everlong. Tonight I throw myself into,
I feel like the effects on the vocals are just too balloony in the low end. That's what I'm hearing here in my room, all right? I'm not sure exactly how it's coming across on YouTube, but that's what I'm feeling, that's what I'm hearing, and I don't like it. So I got to do something to change that. There's just too much going on. Let me try and just EQing the returns, all right? So I have the vocal effect coming out, channel 27 and 28, right here. So it's coming out, the vocal effects, right here to 27 and 28. I want to EQ that.
Hello, I have waited here for you Everlong. Hello, I have waited here for you Everlong.
Okay, I think that might do it. Let's hear what that does. If not, I'm going to grab a plug-in.
Hello, I have waited here for you.
Already way better. I just think I did a little too much. So instead of doing 6 dB of gain reduction on 60 hertz, I am going to go down to 4 dB and just make sure that this isn't overdone up here. And here we go.
Hello, I have waited here for you Everlong.
I think we're in a pretty good spot. Just so you know, I've had the Allen Smart and the Alicia X filter right here on the mix bus since the very beginning. That's the way I mix. I mix into my compressor. Okay, we started around 11:30 noon and ended at 4. So in 4 hours, this is what we got done. And I'll tell you, it was a ton of fun. I cannot thank Warren Hewitt enough for allowing us to download these tracks and fine-tune our craft. These players on this song makes it easy to mix. So please go to Warren's YouTube channel and download these tracks. Also, go listen to my mix and the original Foo Fighters mix that was the actual release on the album and compare them, and then do it to your mix. This is how we get better, by comparing what we do to the professionals. Thank you so much for watching. Take care, guys.
To